Former New York Yankee Jim Leyritz with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team, joining us every Wednesday at 5:15. Thanks to our friends at Red Wing Shoes. Jim, we're looking forward to this all season long, man, and here we go. The Yankees on opening day on Monday only had 3 hits. Now, I understand it's one game, Jim. We're not going to get too crazy on this, but at what point do we look at that and say, oh, offense last year was their bugaboo. It's going to be a problem again this year. At what point do we say that, Jim?
Well, we wouldn't be Yankee fans if we didn't say that for day one.
There you go.
Fair point. Fair point.
All over
Fair point. I'm very upset.
Yeah, but again, it is game one. As a player, you'd like to get off to that good start, but you understand that you're just breaking spring training. You're coming back into a new atmosphere. I'm always one of those guys that said, okay, after about 10 days of games is when I can finally start to kind of evaluate okay, where are we at as far as the offense goes, because I think the pitchers do have an advantage early on.
So, Jim, basically, as a guy who's sitting here watching, if we're 10 games in and this staff that really wasn't putting a lot of runs on the board last year still isn't putting runs on the board this year, that's the point where we start to raise an eyebrow and go, we may have the same issues we had last year.
Exactly. The team in spring training looked like offensively it was going to click pretty well, and I think we just got to give it some time. I think again, it's let these guys see, at least 2 or 3, opportunities to play here in New York also the first couple games on the road, and then we'll kind of be able to tell where they're at.
Former Yankees catcher Jim Leyritz with Armen Levack. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes. Jim's actually at the games all this week, still works for the Yankees, very involved with the Yankees. And Jim, when you watched Masahiro Tananka in the opener, he had the worst home appearance that he's ever had, worse than any home appearance he had all of last year, only pitched 4 innings. We're concerned that he didn't throw the fastball and that this could be more than a mental deal. Are there reasons to be concerned in your mind already?
Well, he gave a press conference afterwards that was a little bit confusing to everybody. To me, I'm kind of worried that he started off with that adrenaline and looked pretty good, but then all of a sudden it looked like after that adrenaline wore off, maybe there's still that, that little bit of that injury is still kind of in the back of his head, and he's not ready to go full force yet.
At what point do we start to panic about him? Is it, is it mental? Is it physical? And quite honestly, which one of those would be worse in your mind as an athlete?
I think he's already given us reason to start worrying. He just didn't have that confidence that he normally had. And to stay away from the fastball, I think we have 2 or 3 more outings, and I think he's going to kind of look at it and go, okay, you know what? Look at that guy across town. He just did his Tommy John surgery, and he's coming back, and he doesn't look, like anything could stop him. Maybe this is, maybe trying to get through this whole season when there's not a guarantee postseason with this team. Maybe it's time to take care of myself and get this thing taken care of.
Jim, obviously, if it's a physical aspect, that's a whole other deal. He probably has to go get Tommy John. If it's just a mental deal with Tanaka for him to get past it and realize that he should be throwing faster, that he can't throw the fastball, how much of the baseball game is mental? How big of a deal is the mental aspect, and for a pitcher specifically?
After an injury, it becomes very mental. The first 9 years of my career, I was never hurt, never injured, never had anything really ailing too much. I never really thought twice. But as soon as I had my first shoulder surgery with the rotator cuff in my left arm, things started to make me, okay, when I didn't feel 100%, I started to wonder, is it the injury? Is it me? What the problem is? And I think that's what you may be seeing with Tanaka this year, that every time he doesn't feel exactly right, in the back of his mind it's going to be that, well, maybe it's going to go this time. Maybe it's finally going to snap, or maybe it's going to, I'm going to hurt myself this time. That might be in the back of his mind, because I know that as once you have the injury, even though maybe you're playing through it or you're getting through it, you always have it in the back of your mind that this could be the last time that before it snaps.
Is there any fix for that? Is there like a veteran who comes over to you and slaps you in the back of the head and goes, hey, stop it, you're fine?
Well, I think mentally you can maybe overcome it a little bit, but it's more the physical. It's more of you feel that little twinge in the elbow, you feel that little twinge in the arm, and you're like, okay, is that coming from the injury? Is it coming from something new? Am I changing my motion a little bit to where I'm going to injure something else? But those are all the things that you start to worry about when those things start becoming more of a physical problem. The mental problem, sometimes guys can get through it. But But the physical side of it is something that can't be ignored.
Jim Leyritz with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes every single Wednesday throughout the Yankee season at 5:15. Jim will join us. His website, check it out, jimleyritz.com as well. And Jim, Michael Pineda on the mound tonight for the Yankees against the Blue Jays. He had a phenomenal spring. As a catcher, what do you do to try to help him keep that momentum going into tonight's opener for him?
Well, the first thing you do is tell him to put the pine tar somewhere where you can't see it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Was that one of the more dumbest things you've ever seen in baseball?
That pretty much took the cake for me. That to me was something that is just, I still shake my head to this day going, okay, what could he have been thinking right there?
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then he never used it. So I'm like, okay, now I'm really confused. But no, you know what, with him, this is the picture that the Yankees thought they got when they originally made the trade. And he finished last season strong. He started spring training strong. If this guy is healthy, he has some nasty stuff. And again, it's all about the health. And it looked like in spring that this guy was ready to take over, being one of the top two starters in that rotation.
Is there a class where you guys pull a guy like that aside and go, all right, inside the belt, brim of the hat, less spine, like, because he's got it. I noticed in the cold weather is when he went to the pine tar, and it's going to be cold tonight. He's probably going to have it, right?
That's usually when pitchers do it. As a hitter, I didn't really care if the guy used a little bit of pine tar to get a grip on the ball. It actually made me feel a little more comfortable that at least he could feel the pitches, or he could at least do that. It didn't make that much of a difference, I didn't think, too, as far as the break on the ball or anything like that. But that being said, when you're so obvious about it, it has to be talked to. It has to be taken care of, and it's something that we know in baseball. It does go on, and it's just a matter of do it the right way if you're going to do it. And I think, like you said, tonight's going to be cold. Tonight would be a night that you would probably try to use it at some point.
Well, let's be honest. The way that he gets past that story and that idea of him is by kicking ass this year and by throwing it in that top notch and doing what he did in the spring.
Believe me, Joe Girardi grabbed him last year after all that, and I can guarantee you, I know Joe well enough that he sat him down and said, "Listen, you are that good, and you have that good of stuff that you don't need to put any doubt in anybody's mind by being so obvious about if you're using this thing a little bit." But with that being said, I think Joe probably handled it pretty quick, and we won't see anything like that happen again.
Jim, you mentioned Joe pretty well. You were on the same Yankees team with Joe Girardi. What is it about him as a player that you remember that now you watch him as a manager and you say, "Man, he's so good because he's got that"?
Well, you know what it was is Joe and I were completely different as far as personalities, obviously, and catching wise. I went more with feel. I went more with, what my pitcher's strength was and what I felt like. Joe was more by the book. Joe was, he studied it. He's a Northwestern grad. I mean, the guy was very, very smart, and he was book smart, and he usually went with what the best odds were. A lot like Buck Showalter did as a manager when he was here. And you knew that as a player playing with him, that's how he was. And as a manager, you can see he's pretty much textbook. And that, in the long run, works out. But to me, I think he's learning a little bit more to go with some more feel, a little bit more how he feels about maybe the confidence that he has in his own pitcher. I think he's doing that a little bit more. But the majority of the time, if you're going to be the opposing manager against Joe Girardi, your best bet is to bet on what the book says or what the odds say.
Jim, when you watch the season opener and the A-Rod gets a standing ovation, were you shocked at all by that?
A little bit. I was. There were some boos, but I was surprised on a whole that he got a pretty good ovation, and I'm sure it made him feel good. And again, I think what it is, it's the Yankee fans are willing to give you a second chance, and if you can perform and you're going to be beneficial to the team, and hopefully maybe they're going to give him another opportunity. But I'm going to tell you what, in 3 weeks, if this guy's still swinging the bat not very well and still not doing real well, those cheers are going to change real quick.
Jim, last night the New York Rangers beat the Devils, taking home the President's Trophy. You were there. What was it like, my man?
Oh, it was awesome. And I felt kind of weird because the Devils are the ones that got me the tickets. But at the same time, they all know that I'm a Ranger fan, and my buddy that we went with, his kid was wearing a Ranger jersey, and my son was there, and Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was a good game, and to see the Rangers win and get that President's Trophy, that was huge. And I can't be any more excited because the last time this happened, they won the Cup, and of course, I don't know if I told you the story, but I drank out of the '94 Cup, and that was a pretty special thing for me. And Masahiro and Leach and those guys, I caught them out one night in the city, and they said, "Listen, you got to come drink out of the cup." And I said, "Okay," so I did. So I am hoping that we can have a repeat of '94 this year.
Amen to that. That's pretty sweet, man. There's nothing like the Stanley Cup. Jim Leyritz with Armen Levack. Find him on Twitter at @TheRealJLeyritz. Jim, how excited are you just to be at Yankee Stadium tonight? Baseball back, man. What's that feel you get when you walk into Yankee Stadium?
Well, it's always great. The electricity's there. Game one there was. We'll see what happens. Early April's kind of tough here because the weather, kids are still in school and things like that to really judge how great the fans are going to be or how much they're going to back them. And there's so many question marks because this is, the guy said it to me on the train the other day, this is day one without two, which I thought was pretty profound. Is what day one without number two. And, it is a whole new era. Any kind of connection to the past is pretty much gone. And these guys are starting something new. So I think there's going to be some question marks. It's going to be really important for this team to play well. I'm not going to say they have to be above 500, but they're going to play well if they want these fans to come out and support them.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankees catcher, joins us every Wednesday at 5:15. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes here in the Clifton Park area. And Jim, always appreciate your time jumping on. Have a great time at the game tonight, and we look forward to next Wednesday, my friend.
All right, guys. Hopefully we'll be talking about a few more victories by next Wednesday.
Yes, please.
Hey, at least one at this point, right? We'll take it.
All right, guys. Have a good one.